and swift.
A record-breaking match in Delhi in runs terms. 754 scored all told, the most number of runs in a World Cup match. And South Africa were responsible for breaking a lot of those records. They set the highest total at a World Cup match. And Aiden Markram scored the fastest 100 at a World Cup game. This is Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. And I'm here with Dale Steyn and Farveez Maharoof to dissect what's been a really high run scoring game, but not necessarily the most competitive fixture. Dale, what did you make of that in terms of dominance versus competition value, I suppose?
This is a long day.
You're awake?
Yeah, I've done I did a double header today, but great cricket all around. If you're a cricket fan, yeah, very good to watch. Lots of runs. I love the way that the South Africans batted. You know, anytime a team is scoring 400, it's worth going back to the highlights and watching how they went about it. But then I think Sri Lanka, they really put an effort there to get the total that they got to. And probably more what I thought was a par score roundabout on that ground. Maybe 380, 370 would have been par, which is huge. It's a lot of runs, considering that I think 210 is like the average score. Exactly. But they did fantastically well. I said at the halfway stage that I thought they would get close to that 350, 360 mark, or they would get bundled out for 150 as the Farveez. So I thought they batted nicely, and the South Africans bowled really well. Marco Jansen was unlucky. He ends up with 2 for 90 with a couple drop catches and didn't bowl that badly, but on a small field where like one bounce fours are just like side of the edge of the bat and it's going for a boundary. So all round, a good game, lots of runs, and if you're a cricket lover, you would have been entertained all day.
Yeah, definitely all day, that's for sure. Farveez, you spoke at the break about perhaps 300, and really it was a good chase by Sri Lanka. If they were chasing 360, we would be talking about a very different game, and it probably would have looked like a different chase. But after the pounding they took in the field, are you quite pleased with the way they've come out of the game?
I think it's very hard to put in words how I actually feel about it. Yes, it's a massive win, more than 100 runs. But the way the batters showed application, especially Kusal Mendes, the way he batted, and some of the batters in the middle order as well as Tasun Shanaka will come back to form after so many innings. Getting a hit out there. I think it's a game that Sri Lankans will have a lot of positives when it comes to batting. But I think when it comes to international level to perform in a World Cup against competitive sides, the bowling side got to be much more ruthless and got to be much more consistent with their lengths. If not, Sri Lanka will be struggling with the bowling lineup, as many of the senior blowers are missing. So, overall, if I look at today's game, it's a game that had positives, yes, but a lot to work going forward, especially in the bowling lineup.
Yes, so Sri Lanka maybe won't be too disappointed with that result, but they may have felt differently at the halfway stage when they conceded all those runs. And Dale, I'm going to take you back there now. We're going to dissect South Africa's innings a little bit and just look at each of those individual performances. Let's start with Quinton de Kock. He's the man playing in his last World Cup, but in his last one-day internationals, actually. He's retiring from the format after this. And it looked like that century, it's his first in a World Cup, and he's waited 3 tournaments for it, really meant something to him. We saw a really emotional celebration. Can you talk us through why that might have been?
Yeah, I've known Quinny for a long time, and I think a lot of things that people don't realize about him is he's actually quite an emotional guy, probably giving away too much over here. He's a very caring guy. He's such a gentle man, soft heart. And then when he gets onto the cricket field, he really kind of comes to his own. He plays quite an aggressive style. He's almost got this deadpan look in his eyes. You don't know quite what you're getting from Quinny until he scores 100 or something special happens, and then you see it almost happens and it looks like he wants to burst out into tears because he really is such a good person inside. And I think this one meant a lot for him. I know that he loves to have his family around, and they weren't here today. Saw Sasha posted a couple things on Instagram from home, but it meant a lot to him. And when you announce something like your retirement, you want to go out with a bang. So clearly he's thinking and he's hoping that he can get South Africa over the line in this World Cup in terms of winning the World Cup. But from a personal point of view, hundreds is what South Africa won from him, and he started today with a good one.
Yeah, Farveez, Dale's talking about Quinny as a soft-hearted man. That's not what the Sri Lankan bowlers would have seen. They would have just seen somebody who's getting on the back foot and pulling them to all parts of the ground there. What did you make of the aggression of his innings?
I think most of the South Africans, maybe out off the field, are very soft-hearted and light-spoken, but on the field, they just. I mean, you have example in Dale Steyn in the studio. He was just a roaring lion in the middle, but off the field, he's one of the nicest blokes. So I've heard a lot of things about Quinny. Yes, he's a guy that plays hard off the field. He's very close to the family. So when it comes to aggression, we've seen what Quinton de Kock has done in the past, and Sri Lankans knew they need to get Quinton de Kock out as early as possible. That's why I was quite surprised that tactically Dhananjay de Silva wasn't bought in against Quinton de Kock in the power play. Yes, a right-hander was there, Rassie van der Dussen in the power play, but I would have tempted to bowl a couple of overs of Dhananjay de Silva, especially if you look at the record of Quinton de Kock when it comes to off-spin. Isn't that great? So I think Sri Lanka would have missed a trick there, putting more damage into South African innings.
So maybe a little bit of a tactical error there from Sri Lanka, but it's not like South Africa gave them too many chances. Themba Bavuma dismissed early, and then Rassie van der Dussen, who was with Quinton de Kock for a 200-run third wicket stand or second wicket stand, he played a slightly different tempo of an innings, and he approaches it differently. So, Farveez, do you think it was a little bit of that fire and ice and the yin and yang that had Sri Lanka in that tactical conundrum?
I think any international team, any international good teams will have their number 3 spot, their best player. You take India, you got Virat Kohli there. And for South Africa, Dussen plays that architect's role. He lays the foundation for the top order batters as well as the middle order batters to play their natural game and to be aggressive. Aiden Markram, Henrik Klaasen, they all played aggressive because at number 3, Henrik Klaasen made sure he played innings that he dragged into the deep into the game. And any good teams will have a good number 3. I think Rassie van der Dussen is that player, just like Jack Cully's in the past, batting at number 3, brings that calmness, brings that aggression when it's needed. So that's the spot. I think South Africa's got a very good player for the future as well.
Yeah, Dale, I just want to talk a little bit about Rassie. He's got an amazing one-day average, and Farveez is speaking there about his many attributes as a player. But this has actually been a sort of up-and-down year for him. He scored that 100 against England in Bloemfontein, and then he only had 150 in his next 9 innings. So how much needed was this innings for him to say, I'm still owning the spot?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. Anytime you get 100, it really means a lot to you. And I watched Rassie earlier this year in the SA20, and it just felt like 50 overs is more suited, as well as test matches for him, where he gets a little bit more time to bat. There was a small period there in that SA20 where I think teams required or asked him to score at a quicker rate, and he had to take on balls that he normally wouldn't take on. But today you watched him bat. He handled the pressure while he got in there early, took his time with Quinny. It's nice to bat with somebody with Quinny who scores at the rate that he bats at, and allowed Rassie to kind of play his natural game. But let's not forget, this wicket is a good wicket. Some wonderful shots, but this wicket allowed them to play the way that they wanted to play. That came on true, small field. They were able to throw their hands at the wide one. I thought Sri Lanka were, tactically, I agree, just tactically off. At the end of the day, they didn't create enough wicket-taking options and opportunities where they could have taken an off-spinner to Quinton or, somebody to Rassie. They didn't have that. So both of them handled that pressure and then got through that phase and then just batted. And when you're allowed to bat, you can score runs, especially, you can see the tail enders of Sri Lanka come in and they're allowed to bat, they're scoring 30s, So fantastic knock for Rassie and a great way to start off this campaign because he is the glue for South Africa right now. He's the guy that's going to bat through the innings. He's going to bat long and get you those big, hundreds, 120s, and obviously why he averages close to almost 60 now in ODI cricket.
Yeah, I get the sense that a lot hinges around Rassie and his form. We've spoken a bit about the top 3. Themba didn't come right in today's game. But in general, that top 3 has been among the top performing top 3s in the world. And given that, and then what we saw from, we're going to come to him, so don't go too far on Aiden Markram yet. But would you say that this South African lineup is now looking the most formidable and perhaps also the most in form of the tournament so far? And for South Africa, for a long time, it looks like a top 6, top 7 that I'm sitting back as a bowler and I'm going, yep, I back these guys. There was a period when I hate to talk about myself, but when I was playing, you had the likes of Hashim Amla, Faf, AB, Graham, Jark, these guys in test matches, you just felt like feet up. These guys are going to score 350 plus and you're able to go out there and bowl. And I feel like the bowlers, for a change now, they feel like, okay, we've got a batting lineup that's going to get us totals of 300 plus that we can bowl to. Rassie's in great form. Themba's averaging almost 80 this year.
Quinton is just retired, and you know that he's keen to score runs. And then we get to Aiden, Heinrich Klaas, and David Miller. That is a lineup that I'm ready to take my boots off and go and bowl again. Like, I'm ready to go and bowl if you know, for this team. I just feel like they are the kind of guys that are going to get you scores. They're going to win your games. They're going to get totals, or they're going to put on a score that teams are going to struggle to get.
Yeah, so Dale Steyn there is offering to make a comeback for South Africa. And Farveez, I don't know, are you offering to go and bowl to that top 6? Do you think that's a top 6 that you'd want to go up against?
My L5, L6 is gone. I can't even bend properly. So that's it for me. I mean, for me, when it comes to bowling. But I'm pretty sure Dale Steyn keeps fit, and, you know, he will be able to get a go. And also, I mean, just want to make a point on the first selection for South Africa going forward. And you have a champion bowler like Tabraiz Shamsi. I think when they go to pitches where it's going to get slower, lower, I think Shamsi will play a key role. And when the pitches have a bit of bounce, I think it's a tussle between Gerald Coetzee or Tabraiz Shamsi going into the World Cup. So that's a very good combination to have. And I think the top 7 picks itself. Rabada, Ngidi picks itself again, and Maharaj. And that one spot, I think they will play horses for courses depending on the venue.
Yeah, Farveez, you bring up a really good point, because we spoke about the Delhi ground maybe favouring spinners, and then we got there and saw that instead South Africa decided to go with Gerald Coetzee, and it turned out to be a pretty good move. So, Dale, I want to just ask you about that team selection. Will Shamo be used more in that, as Farveez is saying, horses for courses role, and is that the selection kind of conundrum? And then also Delhi itself, as we see the tournament go on, are we going to see more teams kind of think about, oh, is this really a spinner's venue?
Yeah, I think you've got to be at the venues to look at the pitches. You know, the beauty of playing there is that you're there 3 days before, 2 days before. You can see the surface, and you see how it changes as the game's getting closer and closer and closer. So they'll have a better understanding of who they want to play. But that is probably the one pick there. I think this is the South African team that you'll see throughout the tournament, barring potentially an injury to somebody. And then they've got Reza as a batter to kind of step in if there is an injury. And then from a bowling point of view, spot on, you know. Gerald Coetzee and Shamo are going to share that role as to who's going to play. Is it going to turn? Sure, we're going to play the extra spinner. Do we feel like it's not going to turn? We're going to stick to what we do best, which is bowl quick and use our pace, our aggression, our bounce, and our skill to kind of get wickets. And that's what they did tonight. Even though the guys still went at a lot of runs, it was that kind of pitch today where there was going to be a lot of runs. They got the job done, you know, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, and Gerald Coetzee, I suppose, to some may have been a bit of a wild card pick for the tournament. He'd only played 2 ODIs when the selection was made, and then 6 after the Australia series. We know he's quick, we know he's intimidating, we know he's got a bit of variation. What did you see in him today that suggests he's World Cup pedigree?
He's got the bounce, he's got the aggression. I like that he brings this like kind of different approach, and a approach in the sense that nobody really knows much about him, you know. So he's that kind of like, what we're going to get. Maybe we have to look at him a little bit, you know. And then he's a world-class bowler, you know. We've seen him play in leagues around the world. Teams are buying him all over the place. So just by looking at him, you know straight away that there's something about him that you want, and you want him in your team. The South Africa have recognized that, even though he only played a handful of games, and they said, all right, come along with us to the World Cup, and we're going to use you as that kind of wild card that no one knows of, but we know your skill and what you can do. And he bowled nicely today. He brings a lot of aggression. I think the team loves that. You can see when he's celebrating, it kind of builds the team.
A bit like you, right? He's got that.
I suppose a little bit, yes. Faf always used to say that. And then that aggression. I saw KG bowl a little bit quicker tonight for a change. It looked like he was really in it. When he got that wicket of Kusal Mendes, you could see his teeth, which meant it just shows me that there's effort. You know, there's a lot of effort. And that sometimes comes from a bit of competition. When you've got somebody else that's bowling quick on the other side, you want to outdo that guy and you want to bowl quicker. So that's also a good thing for our quicks, is that there's this competition amongst them as to who can bowl quick, and it kind of really gets it going for the fast bowlers.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking a little bit about KG. You've spoken about the intensity and the heat. I think there was 2 overs that he bowled where it looked like, oh, he's taking it on here and maybe looking a little bit lukewarm. Then he got the wicket, and that lifted everything. His importance to the team is crucial, as we know. What else needs to happen for him to fire? I mean, does Lungi need to play a bit more of a role? We saw a bit from Marco Jansen. I guess people have to work around KG, right?
Well, they all have to work together, I would say. But I like the fact that I saw KG tonight. It looked like he wanted to bowl quick. He wasn't just going through the motions. Sometimes when you play a lot of cricket, you kind of get there, you look at the pitch and you think, all I need to do is just get the ball there and thereabouts and I'm going to be okay. But KG recognised that today it's a high-scoring venue. There's a lot of runs. We scored a lot of runs. South Africa scored a lot of runs. I'm going to have to do something a little bit more, a little bit extra. And you saw that wicket that he got with Kusal Mendes. It's hit Heinrich Klaasen hard on a wicket that is good for batting. So he's put a little bit into that. And I love that because going through the tournament, I want to see him do more of that. I want to see him bowl quickly and go through the gears, obviously. But obviously that particular ball, he gave it a little bit extra, he rushed him, gets a wicket. And that's the kind of KG that I like to see bowl.
Yeah. Farveez, we're talking a lot about South Africa's bowlers, and of course they had a lot of runs to work with and play with, and it almost feels a little bit unfair to be too picky on Sri Lanka's attack. Everybody, I guess, got a little bit of a pasting. But if there's some positives to take out of it, I want to ask you about Dussen Shanaka's role. We spoke about it a bit before the show, and he ended up scoring his highest score in 18 innings since his 100 earlier in the year, so he's come right a little bit with the bat. What are we expecting from him as things go forward, especially considering the next game is against Pakistan, who look pretty good?
Yeah, they looked really good, and the Pakistan game will be at the Hyderabad stadium. And Pakistan have been playing a lot of cricket at Hyderabad. They played the last game against Netherlands at Hyderabad. They played, I think, one practice game at Hyderabad, so they know the conditions. And but I've seen a little that looks a slower pitch comparing to Delhi. So I think for Sri Lanka, my station, as I said, is going to be a crucial factor. I hope that in the next couple of days, the medical committee will get it right and somehow will get him to the park. I mean, hamstring injuries, Dale and I both know how bad hamstring can be. Recurrence can be really, really bad. And Mahesh just got injured, I think, about 3 weeks ago. So he's on the process of getting fit. So if he's fit, I think he'll straight away come into the place of one of the quicks. I think most probably Dilshan Madhuska will give away and Mahesh Dixit will come into the side, and I reckon the batting order will remain the same. So it's all about starting well, and conditions will be different. This is a challenge that every team will be given forward when it comes to playing in different conditions. Lucknow, Delhi, Hyderabad, all these places are different pitches when you go up north and coming down south of India. So Sri Lanka need to start well against Pakistan. They've just beat Pakistan in the Asia Cup in Sri Lanka. So mind games will be on, but it all depends on the day. And I hope Sri Lanka will somehow get the Mahesh Dixit into the 11 because he was a big miss today.
Yeah, so a couple of selection questions there, Dale, but I just want to ask about the psychological aspect of being pasted for over 400 runs. And it may have been something you were on the receiving end of, I don't know, not very often, but a couple of times in your career. Do they have to go and analyse this performance, the Sri Lankan attack, or can they just say, okay, bad day, things didn't go well, South Africa batted fantastically, let's put that aside and let's get on with the tournament?
A bit of both. You don't want to dwell into it too much. I mean, it's never nice to go for that amount of runs, so you're already feeling bad as it is. I think the key thing is to kind of look, and from when I put my coaching hat on and I'm talking to the players that I have, I'm always saying to them, guys, did we create enough chances? And how did we create those chances? When I looked at Sri Lanka today, there wasn't enough chances. They didn't create enough wicket-taking chances. And I just felt like they didn't hold an area for long enough. They would probably bowl 4 or 5 good balls, and then there was a bad ball. One down leg side that went for 4. One that's over-pitched just as you're starting to get going. So those are the kinds of things that I'm going to look at. I'm not going to look at the end score. I know it's a big score. I'm just going to sit down with each player. I'm going to say, where did you go wrong? Where could you have created more chances? Where could you have held back? Because it's really small moments in the game that Sri Lanka lost today. And you can tell on a high-scoring ground like this, when they went out to bat, had they restricted South Africa to a 370 or 380, I mean, it's game on, really, at the end of the day. So it's those small percentages that you just lose out on. South Africa go to a world record, World Cup world record, and the score is out of your reach, but it's close. It's close. It's closer than you think it is.
Yes, certainly. And before we end off, Dale, we can't leave this chat without talking about the absolute man of the moment, Aiden Markram, who's joined big names like A.B. de Villiers in terms of fastest hundreds. This time it's the fastest 100 at a World Cup. He beats Kevin O'Brien's record, and he went from 50 to 100 in 15 balls, which is pretty phenomenal. Aiden Markram, we know, is a classical player with a great technique. Dale, what did you see from him today that suggested there's also that X factor?
I've seen him do this so many times at domestic cricket, to be honest with you. He's a bit of a bully in domestic cricket. He's way too good to be playing for the Titans against, you know, the domestic sides in South Africa.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be playing for South Africa all the time. But we want to see this kind of thing more from him, you know. Obviously today is a sensational knock. It's a record. So I'm not saying that's going to happen every single game. But the intent that he played at was just beautiful, you know. I played that game when AB scored 100 and whatever it was against the West Indies in Sydney in 2015. And AB was on his back half the time, playing reverse sweeps and laps and all this kind of stuff. But Aiden Markram stood there today, stood tall, genuine cricket stance, played great cricket shots, and just hit the ball with extreme power, smart as to finding gaps and everything like that. You want to see that kind of cricket from Aiden going through this tournament. It was great to watch, to be honest with you. But then again, tough wicket for the bowlers to bowl on, and allowed the batters to play their natural game. And Aiden, when he's on fire like he is very tough to bowl to.
Yeah, so two bowlers here who are quite happy that they were not out there today. Dale, you've in fact been part of 2 of the 3 occasions where South African batters have scored 300s in an innings. This was their 3rd time. They're the only team to have done so. And they've got their first points on the board at this Cricket World Cup. So we're going to wrap up here with our Maruti Suzuki Arena Presents ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. It's been a super Saturday at the World Cup. Wins for Bangladesh and South Africa, and you can read all about it on the ESPN Cricinfo app, which you can download for all the scores, news, analysis and views. We look forward to being back with you on Sunday, where the hosts India will play Australia in what is set to be an epic clash in this tournament. See you then.
Stunning looks, then swift,